On April 25, 1974, police found a 27-year-old woman dead on a couch in a Los Angeles apartment. Heroin overdose. Nothing unusual for the city that year, except for one detail the coroner's report didn't explain. Jim Morrison had died at 27, exactly the same age, almost exactly 3 years earlier to the week. This woman wasn't a fan. She wasn't a groupie. She was the one person on Earth who knew what actually happened to Jim Morrison in that Paris bathtub. And weeks before she died, a courtroom had just ruled that his entire fortune belonged to her. Her name was Pamela Courson, and her story is the part of the Jim Morrison legend that almost nobody tells. 1966, the London Fog, a small club on the Sunset Strip, long before the Doors were famous enough to fill anywhere bigger. Pamela Courson was an art student at LA City College. Jim Morrison was the unknown singer of a bar band that couldn't yet get arrested. They started dating. Within a couple of years, she wasn't just his girlfriend. Friends who knew them both described her as the one person who could actually rein him in, at least some of the time. In 1969, using royalty money from the album Strange Days, Morrison bankrolled a boutique for her on La Cienega Boulevard. She named it Themis, after the Greek goddess of divine order. Rare clothing from Morocco, incense, mirrors, peacock feathers on the walls and ceiling, because the two of them couldn't agree on just one. It became a private hangout for the LA scene, appointment only. It was, by every account, a genuinely turbulent relationship. Heavy drug use on both sides, public fights, long separations. But whatever it was, it lasted 6 years, longer than almost anything else in Morrison's chaotic life. In March 1971, Morrison left the band behind and moved to Paris with Courson, chasing the life of a poet, away from the fame that was suffocating him. 4 months later, on July 3rd, he was dead. Courson was the one who found him. There was no autopsy. The official cause of death listed was heart failure. To this day, no independent medical investigation ever confirmed exactly what killed him. And Courson, the only witness, gave conflicting accounts over the following years about what she saw that morning. That ambiguity is a big part of why Morrison conspiracy theories exist at all. We're not going to relitigate that here. That's a different video. This one is about what happened to her after. Here's the part most documentaries skip completely. Morrison's will left everything to Courson, on one condition. The document described him as an unmarried person, which meant Courson had to legally prove she was his common-law wife just to inherit anything at all. The other members of the Doors sued the estate, claiming Morrison owed them money. Multiple women came forward, claiming Morrison had fathered their children and demanding a piece of the fortune. Every single claim froze the assets further. So for most of the next 3 years, the woman who was legally supposed to inherit a rock star's fortune was, by multiple accounts, broke. She received exactly one payout during that stretch and reportedly spent it on a fur coat and a new Volkswagen. According to people who knew her, she also drove a van through the front window of Themis not long after returning from Paris. The boutique never reopened. Her drug use, already a serious problem before Morrison died, got worse. Former Doors associate Danny Sugarman, who spent time with her during this period, later wrote about using heroin with her himself. Then, early in 1974, nearly 3 years after Morrison's death, a probate court finally ruled. Pamela Courson was legally recognized as his common-law wife. The estate, and everything tied up in it, was hers. Weeks later, she was dead, on the couch of an apartment she shared with 2 male friends. Same cause of death pattern rock fans had already started calling the 27 Club. Same age Morrison was when he died. She left no will. Deliver it clean, no melodrama needed. The facts carry it. Because Courson died intestate, her share of Jim Morrison's estate didn't go to Morrison's family, and it didn't go to her. It went by law to her parents, a couple named Columbus and Penny Courson, who had spent years disapproving of everything about her relationship with Morrison. Morrison's own parents then sued the Coursons, arguing the will itself was invalid. That fight dragged on for years. In 1979, 5 years after Pamela's death, 8 after Morrison's, both families finally agreed to split the estate. That estate, built on a $400,000 fortune at the time of Morrison's death, would eventually be worth tens of millions. Two families who barely spoke to each other, splitting a rock star's legacy 50-50, because neither of the two people who actually built it left a will. Pamela Courson is buried at Fairhaven Memorial Park in Santa Ana. The plaque reads, Pamela Susan Morrison, a name she never legally carried a day in her life. Her family later moved her remains to protect the grave from vandalism. The current location isn't public. Everybody remembers Jim Morrison as the one who died young and became a legend. Nobody remembers that the woman who might have known the real story of what happened in that bathtub followed him into the same fate at the exact same age, almost the exact same week of the year, with the ink barely dry on the ruling that made her rich. If you want the other half of this story, what actually happened in that Paris apartment, that's next.